thank God for all this technology. Remember we grew up with the Jetsons, and like you would call somebody and they'd be on the screen, and that was like in the future? Okay, this is the Jetsons. But I really don't want to talk about the Jetsons today. I want to talk about Gilligan's Island. Okay, so I grew up with Gilligan's Island. I don't know if this is a cultural reference you don't understand, but it's about a group of people who were shipwrecked on a desert island. And sometimes you play the game. If I had to be shipwrecked on a desert island, who would I want to be with? Well, you don't have to wonder today, because God has already decided. God has already decided that this is your island. These are the people you're supposed to be with. And if some of you are alone and not with people, you're supposed to be with you. Now, many people have been saying, hey, we're all in this together. We're all in the same boat. But it's not true. We may be in the same storm, but we're not in the same boat. Your boat is different than my boat. And your neighbor's boat is different than your boat. Your boat is unique. This is not an easy storm. There's some seasickness along the way. And every relationship inside this boat has challenges. All of our relationships have challenges. Now, if you think about your key relationships in life, what are factors that could create tremendous pressure within these relationships? What are some of the factors? Let me list some of them, okay? Finances, when there's money issues, that can cause pressure in a relationship. Sickness, loss of a loved one, too close for comfort, spending too much time together, job insecurity, school pressures, social distancing, as in I can't see my therapist, I can't see my friends, special needs children, rebellious children. How many did you check off? Some of us can check off every one. Even one of those creates tremendous pressure in a relationship and can cause strife and challenge. We have a lot of them. This is not easy. So what am I telling you? Number one, everybody gets a hall pass. Everybody gets a hall pass, because this is not normal, okay? These pressures, like that everything's happening at once in this crazy time. So you give a hall pass. What does that mean? It means it's hard to maintain your best self with all of these factors going in. Even one of these factors will send somebody to a marriage counselor or to a therapist or to the guidance counselor. And we've got all of them. So not only am I asking you to give the people in your life, in your boat, on your island, a hall pass, I'm asking you to give yourself one. Don't be so hard on yourself. People ask me, how's it going, Lori? I go, you know what? Some days are great, and some days aren't. Welcome to life. Welcome to life. And sometimes you have a morning where you're mom of the year, woohoo, look at this Ima go. And then in the afternoon, you're like, if Jewish Family Services knew what was going on, they would haul you away in handcuffs. Okay. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. Not only is this time that we're living in not a sprint, but a marathon, but all the key relationships in your life are also like that. Just because you're going through a hard time with somebody in your life, that's for now. It won't always be like this. I promise you. I promise you. I have seen both in my own life and in the many countless people I've been involved with over the decades. Things change. Things pass, but you have to be part of that. Definitely time is very healing, but you need to make it's called your hishtadlut, your effort towards healing these most important relationships. Okay. Now, one of the things also that's creating tremendous pressure and conflict right now is this, you are feeling, and the people in your life are feeling, this tremendous loss of control. Because who knows what's going to be? We literally, from one day to the next, we don't know. From the morning until the afternoon, whether it's a government regulation of what we're allowed to do, or it's new data, or it's a new discovery that maybe is positive or negative, or it's, is my salary going to be coming in, or are we going to be able to maintain this nonprofit, or fill in the blank. We really don't know. And there's a tremendous sense of loss of control. You're feeling it, and the people on your island, in your boat, they're feeling it too. You can't change people. You can only change your reaction to them. I'm going to repeat because it's so important. You can't change people. You can only change your reaction to them. And once you change your reaction to them, that often creates an environment where they can change. Do you want to feel empowered? Control your reactions. Yes, I'm asking you to do that. Even when they push the buttons and they keep pushing. And there are people in your life who know which buttons to push to set you off. You don't have to set off. You don't have to. Just because they push the button doesn't mean you have to react that way. And wait till you see how shocked they're going to look when you don't react. One of the things that's hard about holding back is that nobody knows. It's not like, like in the laws of Lashon Hara, gossip. So you're not supposed to speak badly about people. But when you don't, when there's a conversation and people are like, and you don't speak badly about somebody, it's not like you hold on, everybody. I was about to gossip and transgress the laws of ethical speech, but I didn't. Okay, that's not going to happen. Successful relationships, a lot of our success in our key relationships is not what we say, it's what we don't say. What we don't say. Holding back. That's hard. That's hard. Because again, you don't say to anybody like, oh, hello, excuse me, I was about to scold you, or I was about to criticize you, but I didn't. Nobody knows, but you know, and God knows, and that's empowering. Okay, so a lot of us are dealing with people in our house who look like us. Those are called our children, and some of these people in our house are not supposed to be there. Why? First of all, if they're younger, they're supposed to be in school all day, and they're not. And soon, they're supposed to be in camp, but a lot of them will not be. There's also kids who left and because of the situation are back. And adult children, in general, I would never advise adult children to live with their parents. This is not a good setup for success. So let's review very important principles of dealing with our kids. You ready? I learned this wisdom many years ago when I was the keynote speaker at a federation event in Miami. I was the keynote, but they had breakout sessions. So I was the keynote, and then they had these breakout sessions. So I went to a breakout session. Where am I going? So I went to something on parenting, and it was led by a woman who was the head of the early childhood education department of Nova University in Florida. And she's going on about parenting and this and that. It was very cute. And then she said something that was wisdom. And I'm a collector of wisdom. I remember taking a scrap piece of paper and writing down what she just said. And I have shared it with many, many people. And I did a video blog on this that was shared many, 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 many times. Are you ready? She said, at different points in our children's lives, as a parent, we wear different hats, okay? We wear different hats. So when our kids are little, you are the director. When they're teenagers, you are the supervisor. And when they're grown, you are the consultant. Let's go through these. Let's wear these three hats and I'll explain. So anybody out there who has little children, okay, little kids, is it hard? Is it hard? You're all going, oh, it's so hard. Okay, anybody out there who has teenagers, what would you tell those people who have little kids? Enjoy it while you can, okay? You think it's hard now? Just wait. Just wait. It is hard now when they're little, physically. You have to do so many things for them, and you have to, but when they're teenagers, it's not as physically demanding, it's emotionally demanding. It's psychologically demanding. Your challenges are on a whole different level, and the stakes are higher because mistakes have much bigger consequences. Okay, so enjoy it while you can, but it is not easy, especially now in this closed environment on Gilligan's Island. So when the kids are little, you're the director. Why is it easy? Because what does the director say? Do this, do this, do this, do this. Brush your teeth, do your homework, clean up, stop the game, start the game. Got it? Director. If you are a director with your teenagers and you tell your teenager, do this, don't do this, do this, or do this, you're in big trouble. This is not a recipe for shalom, for peace. So has anybody here, anybody watching, ever worked for a bad supervisor? Anybody ever work for a bad supervisor? What's a bad supervisor? We've all had jobs, summer jobs, other jobs. What's a bad supervisor? A bad supervisor is critical, micromanaging. They're in it for themselves. They never have your back. That's a bad supervisor. Always on you, never gives you autonomy, never helps you to grow, keeps you small. They want to be in control. Don't be a bad supervisor with your teenagers. What's a good supervisor? Has anybody ever here worked for a good supervisor? Oh, a good supervisor gives you the tools to succeed, gives you the space to put those tools into action. If you make a mistake, they don't come down on you. They don't label you. They don't fire you. They're there to help you to grow and learn. They're there to help you to, they're in it for your success. Everything they do, and you feel it. They want you to succeed. That's the kind of supervisor we need to wear, that hat, when parenting our teenagers. Your teenagers need to know, your kids always need to know, you're on their side. You are not their problem. Out there in the world, people are criticizing them and flunking them and breaking up with them and firing them. They have to know, no matter what stage they're at, that you are there for them and you are not their problem. You're their solution. You're always, always on their side. On their side doesn't mean that the teacher is wrong and they're right, but you're on their side. You're there to help them to succeed. You're there to help them to learn and to grow. You are there for them. Okay. I hate to break the news to you, but the hardest stage is not when they're little and you're the director, or when they're teenagers and you're the supervisor. The hardest stage is when they're grown and you're the consultant. Because a consultant speaks when asked. Yeah. A consultant speaks when asked. It's very hard to hold back when you feel your kids are making a mistake or they're making a bad choice, and to hold back and wait for them to ask or for them to come to you. It is not easy. Somebody told me your child's graduation day is their wedding day, their chuppah. That's really when you let them go into the world. But you're always there for them, and they should know that. Okay, so got it? Director, supervisor, consultant. Now, some of us who have a range of children, sometimes during the day, you're taking hat on and off, okay? Because you got little ones and you got teenagers, and then you have it's not easy. No one said this was easy, but it's worth it. It's so worth it. Okay, one of the things I also want to tell you that I'm hearing from like everybody is like this homeschooling thing is like crazy. Not only well, first of all, the positive side is you're really appreciating their teachers. But the downside is like you're always on top of your kids and it's becoming a fight with them to homeschool them. Is that are those the memories you want them to have? You realize we're going through something unprecedented and historic. When I was growing up, my parents told me when I was growing up that they would hear stories from their parents about the pogroms in Europe. And my parents told us stories about the Depression. Our children are going to tell their children and their grandchildren about this time. Right now. Right now. What memories are you giving them? That there's fighting and there's conflict all the time and everybody's in their rooms and nobody's talking. I promise you, if your kids don't do every lesson that the school wants you to do, they're still going to be fine. They're still going to be, they're going to graduate. They're smart kids. They'll be fine. They'll get jobs. They're going to succeed in life. But if they look back and it was a battle and a fight, and you've harmed this most important relationship, what the heck did you do? Don't win the battle and lose the war. Don't check off all the boxes and we did all the homework and all the things and we did, and yelling and screaming and conflict and fighting over the laptop. And then come out of this with not a good relationship with your kids. You know what the opportunity you have right now? Okay, and send your school my way, okay? I will tell them. Again, emotional intelligence in life is more important than book smart intelligence. I promise you. Nobody marries somebody because of their grade. What was your grade point average? Nobody asks people advice because of what their final in geography. People marry people and look up to people and respect people and want to be your friend because you're kind and good and considerate, and that's what we need to model for our kids, and that's what we need to bring out in our kids. One of the ways to do it, I do want to say, is some of the people have been telling me, my kids, they're like, you know, they think this is just one big vacation, and they're like, if you have a pool, they're in the pool, or they're always on the video games, or they're all like, there's something incredible going on in the world, and you want them to tap into it in a very meaningful way. I'm going to give you a tool. You ready? carewithaprayer.org. carewithaprayer.org. It's a site that Momentum has created where you can go in and each of your children can go in and put in your email, and we'll send you the name of a healthcare worker to keep in your prayers. And we have on there a prayer that was composed. It's a universal prayer, or you can just speak from your heart. And you will have a doctor, a nurse, an EMT, their name and where they're from. And that'll be meaningful. And every day, make sure, put it on their fridge. Everybody should, like who you're praying for. Because I spoke to a doctor yesterday, you can see in our Momentum Boost, in our archives, Dr. Profeta, and he said, people keep asking me, like, what can we do for you and your colleagues? And you know what he keeps saying to them? Whether it's a Jewish person asking or a non-Jewish person, he says, pray for us, please. And he also said, send pizza to the emergency room. But he says, please pray for us. Pray for us. Because they're putting their lives and their families' lives on the line every time they walk into that hospital. So go with Care with a Prayer. Right now we have over 1,700 names in the system, but just over 600 people are praying for them, right? You can put names in, and please put more names in. But make sure you take names, because there's over 1,000 people whose names are there, healthcare workers around the world, and we're going to be soon live. Right now it's in English. It's going to also be in Hebrew and Arabic and Spanish and Russian. So please, Care with a Prayer. And that's a good way to make sure your children, that'll be one of their memories. Oh, there was a nurse. I have a nurse practitioner, and her name is Barbara Geller, and I pray for her every day. And I maybe one day I'm going to meet Barbara Geller, who knows? But even if I don't, she's in my prayers. And that's going to be meaningful to me. And that's something I'll be able to tell my grandchildren, what we did during these times. Okay. If we go back to normal or the way it was, everybody keeps going, oh, I just want it to be normal again. I just want to go back to the way it was. If we do, This was for nothing. We're going through this for a reason. No one can tell you why God is doing this to the world, but you can know why God is doing this to you. Our rabbi always said that God is very eloquent. He's not going to bother talking to you unless you can hear it, and you can hear it. The insights we're getting. I have to tell you that here in Jerusalem, we used to hear the birds singing at dawn. Right? The birds would sing at dawn and about 5:15 in the morning. And a couple of weeks into this, I said to my husband, do you notice the birds are singing all day long? You know how we removed ourselves from the world and the world is healing, and suddenly like the birds and the skies are blue and there's goats in Scotland and all the crazy stories you're seeing. The birds are singing all day long. They're singing Shir to Hashem, a song to God. And then a couple days later, I said to my husband, maybe they were singing all along. We just weren't listening. Adrian, maybe the Almighty has made things quiet in the world and made us come inside the world, basically put us in a timeout. Why do you put your kid in a timeout? To remove them from the situation and to think about your actions. God has put all of us in a timeout. So the insights we get. So all the kindnesses and the goodness and the generosity that's coming out and the prayers, maybe it was inside us all along. We just weren't listening.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. Can I ask you a few questions? Do you have time to take a few questions?
I've got all the time in the world. Actually, Shabbat is coming in about an hour, so you got a few minutes.
Okay, so I was thinking at the beginning when you were talking about being in the same storm but in different boats, Lori, I was thinking about an old joke I remember hearing years ago, that a bunch of people are in a boat and somebody starts drilling a hole and somebody says, stop it, and he said, don't worry, it's okay, I'm only drilling under my own seat.
Yeah. The hole's only on my side of the boat.
So you can be in your own boat, but there can be a person in the house who is really drilling a hole under the seat. Now, they might not be drilling it intentionally. For some people, someone was asking about generalized anxiety disorder, which is off the charts in this situation for people who struggle with that. What do you suggest as a family you do when there is one person who so not coping that they are creating most of the problematic vibe in the house?
So first of all, I do want to say that what I was speaking about applies to probably 98% of the families that are out there. But there is a percentage of the families that have situations that are very acute and abusive. So just because you're on Gilligan's Island, and if there's somebody there who's an abuser, like call the authorities. All right, you can still reach out. Don't think that you don't have that option. But if somebody in the family is pushing everybody's buttons, I have to tell you that one of our kids, he was one of those kids, okay? Like when he was younger, he was always pushing everybody's buttons. And every time my husband would come on, I would say, he's in his room again, talk to him. And every day he was in his room, right? I happened to put him in timeout every day. And finally, my husband sat down and he said to him, he had a talk with him, he's a little boy, and said, what would make you happier? And he said, if everybody would stop yelling at me. Oh. My husband called a family meeting and he says, we have a new rule in the family. Nobody's allowed to yell at him.
Wow.
But from that, it was like a 180 after that, a 180.
So are you saying that if there's a problem, if somebody is causing a problem, that instead of disciplining them at this particular juncture, you go to them and you find out what would make life easier for them, and you have the family gather around to support them rather than discipline them? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying to first of all, when you have that conversation with them, it has to be at the right time, in the right moment, okay, not in the middle of intensity and just what would make you happy. You have to ask God to help you to have that right time and to give you the right words. And I have to say that most of the time when people act out, whether it's our kids or us, it's because there's something going on. There's some pain, there's some unhappiness, there's some fear, something's going on. And if you're there as the parent to say, or as the spouse to say, what would make you happier? What can I do?
That's such a beautiful thought. I have never even considered, of course, I'm like, I've never, I've never considered that. Okay, and
My husband is a very great man, and I'll never forget that moment. He's an excellent, excellent father, and he really was just like, I'm telling you, from then on, it was a 180, and we never looked back.
wow. It's interesting because in families, there's always one who's like the trouble, right? And then I've noticed, anyway, in family systems, that once that one calms down, someone else's peg pops up, you know? It's like they take,
Like whack-a-mole.
they take their turns.
No, it's true. When somebody's in crisis, like it's always everybody else is doing fine, and then when it's like fine, and then boom, yeah.
Right. Okay, I've had a lot of people write me and say things to me like, I want to put a pillow over their face and press. I'm like, the sound of their breathing is driving me crazy. I mean, I think this is normal, right? How can we assure people that the negative feelings that they're feeling within this boat, because it's an unusual situation, does not mean that the marriage or the relationship is over? That love is a decision and a choice, and that even when you're not feeling it, you're obliged to give it. I'm not saying you don't have to feel in love all the time and in every situation in order to be committed to the larger whole. Can you speak to that a little bit?
I have to tell you, like, it's not only you don't want to just survive this, you
Right.
want to thrive through this. I've seen tremendous opportunities to have time and space and thought and moments that are so beautiful. And I have to tell you that one time we had a vacation like years ago, and like one of my kids had a complete meltdown on the vacation, like really complete meltdown. And then the next year we went back to the same place, and we had gone to like a certain park when that happened. And we said, what do you want to do like during, while we're here? And that kid said, I want to do what he completely had a meltdown about before, because they don't remember. Now, a lot of the stuff that's going on, they're not necessarily going to remember, but there are things they're going to be special moments. Like everything doesn't have to be perfect all the time for them to have happy memories or warm memories, and cherish those moments, cherish them. And you really, the Almighty somebody said, well, I'm inside. It's like there's a spotlight on my life now that I never saw before. And some of the things you're going to see, you may not be happy about. But it's good that you know that this needs healing and this needs fixing and this needs, so I'm calling all of this growing inside, growing inside. We're inside, but we have to grow inside. We have tremendous opportunities now. And remember, not only give the people in your life, except God forbid, abusive situations, a hall pass right now, because it's not easy with all these pressures. Give yourself a hall pass. Pat yourself on the back. You're doing amazing. We're still alive. That's why I feel every morning, like, we're alive. We're doing great. Okay, hang in there. Hang in there. Remember, there's been no time like this, and we're living through something that we're going to be sharing for generations. What stories do you want to share? And what memories do you want to give everybody in your home?
Oh, bless your heart, Lori Palatnik. Honestly, I found myself just sort of nodding and smiling, like my own color commentary on the other side of my computer, but it made me feel like I was sitting right in front of you. And for that, I am sincerely grateful. And just
I miss you.
I miss you too, but just before we go, can I just say a massive mazel tov? First of all, you looked stunning lighting that.
Lighting.
Stunning.
Israel.
Amen. Oh my God, I love you. We all love you so much, sweetheart.
I'm telling you, it was such an honor and a privilege, and I was representing all of you because I was the diaspora torch of the 12 torches, and I really was representing communities and all of you around the world, and it was a privilege and an honor, and I wish you a Shabbat Shalom because it's almost time to light candles in Israel.